Welcome to C-Level Leadership. I'm Darren Mel. I'm not a CEO, and that's the point. These conversations are about leading from the middle, where trust, empathy, and real work actually happen. Thanks for listening.
Hi. Welcome back to another episode of C-Level Leadership. I'm your host, Darren Mel, proud average human being and people leader for over the last 20 years in the middle management world, all about the middle class, middle management, and the middle seat in an airplane most of the time. This is there's just so much when you've worked for so long in corporate America. There's just so much you take away. And the reason why I started this, I think, was just that I've realized over time that observing is something that I've become good at. Just noticing and observing. And I don't know if that has a place anywhere, but hopefully it does here. And we're still talking about brand. Your brand as a leader. And one of my coworkers at a tech company I worked at had this line. He would say, that person's an empty shirt. And I loved that. It stuck with me. And, I'm not sure if you know what the empty shirt is, but, I've heard this term many times during my career. And it's typically a description of what a specific leader brings to the table. That guy's an empty shirt, meaning the leader is basically a presence in the office as a physical being, but is not looked at as bringing much to the table in terms of their value to the organization. If you are new to leadership, you may have not met this type of leader yet, but I assure you the hovering empty shirt will float your way at some point. For those of you who's experienced this person, you probably know the personality type. They see you in the office, offer you the same greeting every time, hit you with a few high fives, and then away they go on to the next sterile interaction. And after they walk away, everyone around shakes their head, asking themselves, what does that person actually do here? Or how do they even keep their job? I've seen them do nothing here for the past 5 years. And during my working career, I've been fortunate to stay at one company for 15 years and another for over 10. So I've had a chance to see the empty shirts in their natural habitat. And their main goal really, I think, appears to fool everyone into believing that they bring value to their role. Yet everyone around them knows it otherwise. In filling the shirt, it really requires that you're honest with yourself and how you lead and interact with the people around you. As a leader, ask yourself, when was the last time you sought out real constructive advice from someone that you trust? And that's the key, trust, to give you honest feedback. In my opinion, again, that's all that it is. To grow as a leader, feedback is the fuel to growth and change. And being that I've had a chance to work at 2 companies now, one for over 10 years and one for 15, the leaders above me, I can honestly say that I've never been asked by their bosses of how they're doing. And how do you really know if you're a good leader if you get zero feedback? And, that leads me to, when you think about that, I'm asking questions for you just to fuel thought in your brain. Is that where do you bring presence but not impact? That's a tough one to answer, because it means you have to really look at yourself and be self-aware. And also, who would give you honest feedback if you asked? The writer and TED Talk person, Simon Sinek, who I've read some of his books, he talks about finding your why. But in finding your why, or your why it matters, he says you can't ask your family. You got to ask people that are going to really give you the honest truth. And I think about my mom. If I ask my mom, I have 2 brothers, and she thinks we're all amazing. But there's things that we all definitely need to work on. But your self-awareness and maybe your drive to want to know the answers to that is really key. Maybe someone called me an empty shirt in my working career. I just don't know about it because I didn't ask about it. And with this, the word truth, trust, there's so much that's thrown around. trust is such a big aspect of leadership, and it goes both ways. Can you handle the truth? That's a big term right there. Being an effective and successful leader requires that you're in touch with your team and what's going on around you. A previous leader that I worked with, used to say that the further away you get from the sale, the more out of touch you become. And this is in the world of sales leadership. But as I've mentioned, like, out of touch is a terrible description for any leadership quality. And that's a serious personal brand issue. Another side of leadership is being in touch and have the ability to accept feedback on your ideas. And this is an exchange. I'm obviously changing the names to protect people, but this is an exchange that I've heard many times. This isn't something, and I think this might resonate with you as well, but this is a scenario that I heard, just making up some names here, but it was a situation where I said, "Hey, Bob, I was sitting across you in the meeting, and when the VP was telling us his thoughts on what we need to do to hit our sales quota, I saw that some of your facial expressions told me that you were less than thrilled with his advice. Am I right in that assumption?" And Bob says back to me, "Oh yeah, I totally think that's a terrible idea. It'll never work." And I said, You're in the higher level meetings that I don't attend. Do you or the other leaders ever push back on the VP and challenge their ideas with what you believe is the best way to get the result?" And Bob says to me, without batting an eye, "Not if you want to keep working here." And I thought to myself, that response is based in fear. And I've heard that on more than one occasion. The fear is real. And if everyone that rolls up to you as a leader is afraid of giving you real feedback, that's typically, from what I've seen, is where resentment sets in, and then the decline of your team's performance begins for the long haul. I've seen this in some cases where the type of fear is so bad that some employees have told me that they won't even put constructive negative feedback on an anonymous company survey. The paranoia that they feel leads to them to believe that their boss will know that it was them giving the negative survey scores. The threat of retaliation from their leader moves them to either not complete the survey or just don't even fill it out at all. And this keeps the cycle going the wrong direction. If you are a leader, you need to be able to handle the truth from your team. If you cannot, can you really call it a team? My opinion, I don't think so. I'm not recommending that you let your team endlessly vent to you without coming up with a solution, but I preach to my team that if you're unhappy about a current process, I want to hear about it. But I ask that they bring in some pre-thought out ideas on how to fix the problem to the conversation as well. One of the things that I consistently say to my teams is that company surveys are not mandatory. And as a leader, I can only recommend that they fill it out. The company does value the feedback and they're looking for it. But I will always remind them that if they don't feel comfortable coming to myself as their leader or other leaders on my team about a concern that they have, then we're not the right leaders for the job. And that's that level of self-awareness. As your career grows, potentially, if you're listening to this and you are a leader or a newer leader, you really should crave diverse and new ideas from your team. And that shows them that you truly can handle the truth without fear of retaliation or humiliation. And an open and collaborative environment, a leader will lead you to success on a more consistent basis. So that's what I wanted to touch on today. And I'll leave you with this question. Think about that. Who could give you the honest feedback if you asked? And where do you bring presence but not impact? And be honest with yourself. Awareness of your brand is everything. And at C-level, SEA, it's about being right there alongside the people that you work with and make them understand that you are a human just like they are as well. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you on the next one. Have a great day.
This has been C-Level Leadership with Darren Mel, Average Human Being. Thanks for listening.